So the approach we took while doing this program in Iraq was to go a bit by field, primarily because we were unsure of who we were actually, well, the audience we were talking to. It was tough to get an assessment before going there. So the lessons that we're talking about here, these were also things that were learned in the process of running this program, basically on a day-to-day reviews, right? So just very quickly, this program in Iraq, right? The purpose, it was done by an organization called the NDI. Now, I'm just going to give a quick background on Iraq, but most people know the story, right? Saddam up to 2003, then the Americans came and invaded. That kind of uncorked the whole slew of problems that had been prevented from happening before with Saddam's regime. The sectarian violence obviously splits along ethnic lines. The program happened in Erbil, which is the capital of Kurdistan. Kurdistan is pretty much a nation unto itself within Iraq at this stage. And it's also the kind of news cycle violence that you think is happening in Iraq doesn't happen there. The last interesting and the bad way thing that happened in Kurdistan was in 2007, where there was bombing. So Kurdistan is pretty much as safe as it can get. So I wasn't in the adventurous part of Iraq, which I guess kept my mom happy. But in a sense, they still made us take security precautions, as you will see with me in a armored vest here and with a helmet. But it wasn't. It's not a particularly adventurous place to be, in the sense that there's nothing interesting happening in terms of people shooting at each other or things being blown up. The reason why this presentation is going to have pictures. This set of the three people in this picture were key to this program. On the right is Marcin Zaleski. He's from IDEA. The IDEA people here obviously know him. So he was the consultant that the organization that the woman in the middle, Abudan, works for, the National Democratic Institute, called in to help run this program. So IDEA you guys know about, that's me on the left. So let me just talk a bit. Let me just talk a bit. Let me just talk a bit about NDI. So NDI is basically a USAID-related NGO that runs civic society development in Iraq. They've done several programs that they do work with MPs in Iraq for governance. They're doing stuff with teachers, so just various forms of outreach. Now, Ankuta was in charge. Ankuta is from Romania. She was actually a debater while she was in Romania. And so it was kind of her brainchild to come up with a program, a debate outreach program in high schools. Obviously, the situation in Iraq is still unstable, so this is not as straightforward as it would be in any other country where you go, okay, we're going to have a high school debate program, let's put things together. She jumped through a lot of hurdles to make it happen. Eventually, she got the Iraqi Ministry of Education as well as the Kurdistan Ministry of Education on board, and they gave it the go-ahead. So the program is targeted at 52 elite schools. I think all but 2 of these are single-sex schools. Co-education is rare in Iraq. But the thing is, we didn't actually, and this is the thing Tuna was asking earlier, like high school, we didn't actually at any point interface with high school students. A lot of this was done by proxy. So the goal of the program was to get high school students to debate, get them to like it, get them involved in it. But obviously, due to logistical difficulties in just traveling around Iraq, what we did instead was through 2 means. The first, or 2 proxies rather. The first group are NDI's provincial coordinators. So NDI has local, so these are Iraqis who are in charge of each province. So they were supposed to be the interface between NDI and the teachers and the schools. So they were the people who were responsible for going like, these are the schools that are elite in this area, these are, this is where there's potential to start a debate program, and also contacting teachers and bringing them in. This final group of people, of course, and these were the main participants of the program, were the teachers from the elite schools. The program was meant to start a debate in the local languages, so either Kurdish or Arabic, and also so most of the teachers do not speak English. There are a few of them who are English teachers and therefore were able to converse directly. But most of this program was conducted through a translator, or interpreter. So at the start it was simultaneous interpretation. But as the program progressed and I guess they didn't have the money for the devices, it became consecutive translation where we say something and then they translate it, which made for some interesting losses in translation, I think. The interesting thing is also that there is no word apparently for debate in Arabic. There are, which was also discussed yesterday in terms of Burmese. Essentially, there was a word, it was munazara, which was finally used, and people seem to agree that that's an appropriate word. I'm not actually sure, I don't speak Arabic, so I'm not actually sure what that means, but that seemed to be what everyone felt was the appropriate word for it. This is a picture of the participants, not all of them, this was on the final day. So these are all the teachers that we were doing work with. And they were quite an interesting group. So the goals of the program were to perpetuate debate and establish its space as an important civic education tool. The implicit goal when they called us in was also to look at it as a conflict resolution tool. Now anyone who's been to any competitive debate tournament might have their doubts about the capacity of debate to resolve any conflicts, especially if you've ever sat in on World's Council. But that was to some extent what they were looking at. To be honest, I'm not sure whether it can fit that role in terms of conflict resolution, but I think it does help in terms of civic education and see other examples of that in terms of what other people have done. Alright, so what exactly happened over this? So this next one is like what exactly we got done. The program was broken up into 3 sections. The first was like a day-long briefing with the provincial coordinators. The provincial coordinators weren't able to be there for the duration, the second part of the program, which was like a 5-day training session with the teachers. So in essence, what I did first was in effect, they are deputies, right? They're the people who are going to be implementing it on the ground after Marcin and I left, and Amputra will be coordinating, but they're the guys who are doing all the work. So we did like a day-long program with them explaining what debate is, giving the basic concept, and then they did a debate. So it was a condensed version of what we would have done, what we were going to do over the 5 days. After it was a 5-day program with the high school teachers, and then the final bit was because the staff got enthusiastic about debate after seeing what we were up to. They said, can you do a half-day thing with us as well? Which they enjoyed. And I suspect, given that they might actually have started a debate club of their own in the NDI compound. Alright, so the program itself was executed in terms of just really just talking through debate, starting from the very basics. These people have never seen, none of these teachers have actually seen a debate before. Things that we might take for granted, as in there are 2 tables with chairs facing each other and a place to speak, that's something that they couldn't visualize, we had to draw diagrams or stuff like that. This was the first day. The concept, the simultaneous translation I was talking about, if you look at those 2 pillars on the left and right, those black boxes are infrared emitters, and everyone was wearing headphones. And they tune into a particular channel. At the back of the room, there are people who translate what you're saying. Of course, it made it difficult at some points because, when you ask questions as well, you have to switch to the right channel because it wasn't just one language. It was 3 languages on the first day and then 2 languages on the day. Turkish, Kurdish, and Arabic. So someone would ask a question in one language. So that question might sometimes have to be translated into Arabic first, and then the person who understands Arabic will translate it into English, and then we get the question. So it was an interesting process of running the program. So the format we took with this was to make it as participatory as possible, also bearing in mind that we were dealing with educators, teachers that, we wanted them to actually be active, because we're not teaching them how to debate. We're teaching them how to debate, but the eventual goal was that they would teach the students how to debate. So we didn't think it was adequate to just do this in a lecture format and say, yeah, this is debate. We got them to do a lot of activities with us. These are pictures of some of the activities. That's Zia. He's one of the provincial coordinators. So on the first day of the 5-day program, the provincial coordinators were around. They played the role of managing the teachers. And I'll talk a bit about the challenges we faced with the teachers. But they played the role of managing them, getting the group activities started and running them. We also then started breakout sessions where we did certain activities with smaller groups. This activity is called the chain debate. I think people IDEA might be familiar with the concept. It's basically just a continuous debate there's no format, there are slides, but you just basically have people continue talking until you exhaust every possible argument. There's no fixed time, so you might speak for 30 seconds, or you might respond to someone else, or just ask a question to add more value to the debate. The idea is just to progress the debate forward. Right. This was the final day of the program. That's what we did in the end was to hand out certificates of recognition and also give people training materials, as well as promotional materials that they could use in their own schools to promote debate. Right. So that's just the basic story, and then that was the program that was run. More to the set here, and in terms of what we're going to talk about here. There were real challenges in running this program. The first is, neither Martin and I knew what exactly to expect. I've had experience working with university students. I've also done some training with high school students. I've never done training with people, teachers. Well, not debate training. And essentially, there was also a bit of a dynamic as to how far we could go, especially since the median age in the room was 45. I'm not going to reveal my age, but I'm younger than that. So, much younger. Right? And so, there was a bit, I was a bit concerned as to how far I could go. Also, to some extent, there are conceptual challenges that were there. Firstly, just because of the unfamiliarity with debate, but also just the it's a bit of an issue of not having seen that sort of discourse take place in their societies before. So there's a tendency to gravitate towards absolutes, in the sense that there are just truths that are self-evident. We do not need to talk about this. The second problem was really just teaching by proxy, or the challenge that was faced. On two levels. One was just the translation. Like, can you imagine like me giving this talk now and then pausing after every sentence and then Logan translating it to Tagalog and then Marlo asking me a question in Tagalog, which then Logan has to translate back into English and pass it back to me. So that situation made things a bit tricky. The second part was, of course, that we weren't dealing directly with the target group. This was a source of concern actually, because we weren't sure. We're not sure how much. I mean, when you play the game of Chinese whispers, right? We're not sure how much when you say to the teachers, are they actually absorbing and internalizing? And actually, do they understand it on the terms that you are saying it? I mean, also, given that you're also speaking through a translator, so are they actually getting what you're saying? Are we going to end up with a situation where they say something like, the third part, it was initially a concern, but then it turned out to be the other way around. It was getting the buy-in from the teachers. There was a concern that would the teachers see this as a tool that they could use in their classrooms, or something that they would actually want to start. Or we have already X amount of stuff to do in the lesson plan. Why are you giving us more stuff to do, right? There was also an issue of sensitivities, right? This is actually a lot tied to the conceptual ideas. There were several issues during the program itself. The first actually started off with languages. Iraq is a fractious country. I think those frictions in the past were just run roughshod over. But now that there is no governing authority or strong governing authority, a lot of those issues have come to the have been foregrounded. So, like for example, on the first day, we had a guy who refused to be part of the program because he felt that less eminence was being given, less attention was being given to his language. Because they were told that after the first day there wouldn't be a Turkish translation anymore. And he said, why? And there's actually two guys in the 52 who actually only speak that language. But somehow it was a big deal that we only had an Arabic or Kurdish translator, and like they were going to stage a walkout initially. And there was another point at which Marcin makes a remark to the effect of going, "Oh, religion isn't always right all the time," which caused.
Was it uniform in terms of religion?
No, it wasn't. Because they're just different ethnic groups as well, different religions. So there were, if you look at the earlier picture, most of the women are in a hijab. There were two women that weren't, because they're Kurdish Christians. So there was no uniform. Well, it was predominantly Muslim. There was a mix of Shia and Sunni in the group. But that like the moment someone said like religion's not always right, like several people and in some countries you go through and cultures you have to get people to express themselves. We found the reverse problem here. They had no 5 minutes left. Yeah. They had no problems expressing themselves. The problem was getting them to stop expressing themselves and listen to what you had to say. Well, initially I was just going shh until I was told that apparently that's incredibly rude in Iraq because it's apparently what you tell animals when you're herding them. Of course, I spent 3 days. I spent 3 days during the conference telling me that that's actually rude. And there was actually someone else who told me first some of the Iraqis adopted me because they thought I was Iraqi. And they tried to teach me the language after that. They said, "You look like us. You are one of us." But there were issues of sensitivity. There were just also issues to some level of the age gap. Like one lady got upset because she felt I didn't pay her enough attention during the question and answer period. Insensitive, right? But yeah, there were issues like that. There were also issues of a lot of them just didn't have previous debate experience. There was also a high teacher to trainer ratio. Bear in mind again that the provincial coordinators weren't with us on the first day, or beyond the first day, so it was really Marcin, Angkuta, and myself and the translators conducting stuff. At one point when we actually did have breakout sessions for the debate, there were rooms where the teachers were basically judging each other. I think at one point there were arguments between the judges and the debaters on why they got the decision that they did. So the final thing was there was a concern about entropy, right? That essentially while we start off with a point where things are clear and strong, that it would break down into the future. To be honest, I don't have all the answers to all these problems. I can just chat though a bit about what we try to do in terms of core skills building and how we reconcile the world. In terms of takeaways, the lesson we learned was what we tried to do, and I think it was effective in the end. The end result was all the participants were really happy, even those that were initially unhappy at some stage or another. They were quite cheerful about the whole thing and optimistic when they went back. But the two things we felt worked out. Firstly, was to really play it by ear a bit. I think if we had come up with a rigid syllabus, particularly without knowing the audience, it might have been problematic trying to execute it with this group because we just really weren't sure what to expect. The second thing is, and this is probably more to the sustainability aspect of speech sustainability aspect. We focused on core skill building. We didn't really try to prescribe any format or try to make them debate. A lot of the exercises we did had less to do with debates and more to do with just understanding basic concepts of debate. So, for example, like in the trade-offs and dichotomies, we did one of those exercises where you said, if you're on a boat, you have X amount of time and X amount of things you can take off. Choose and have a discussion of why you choose that particular thing. And the idea here was to get them to understand that the debate will always have things that you trade off on both sides. We did exercises in active listening. This was particularly important given everyone was more interested in not listening and talking. Also things like topic generation, debates. Iraq there are sensitivities also in terms of culture. Things like homosexual rights and anything about sex, touching on religion, even touching on the Iraqi government, even in the present state, are considered to be crossing a line. At best, at the end though, I think in terms of results I'll talk about later, we found that the debaters, and they wanted to actually talk about some controversial issues. One of the topics that was mooted was that, is oil a boon or a bane to Iraq? And they did have a productive discussion about that. We talked about argument generation, delivery, refutation, and then finally we actually did a debate with them. So in terms of the conclusions from that, I think in terms of developing debate in a region, or in particular places where it's new, to some extent, getting into the debate as the first thing, throwing them into the deep end might not be particularly effective. I actually do, my personal take is that I think there are prerequisite skills you must have, or concepts you must understand before debating, and that's probably where we did. It seems like the program has been a success. Bear in mind it's only 4 months old though, so it's a bit, of course, a bit soon to tell. But there are 47 debate clubs now that have been established around Iraq. They are competing among themselves, although not at a national level yet. The program is ongoing. The teachers there is feedback going from Ankuta down to the teachers and back up. Martin Zaleski created a debate manual, which has been widely distributed. It was translated into Kurdish and into Arabic and been distributed. One of the concerns was whether a debate program would exacerbate problems exacerbate the friction that already exists there. There have been no issues to that extent. Also issues about whether or not parents would allow their children to travel or debate against, again it's a very conservative society, so debating against boys and girls debating against each other would have been an issue, there was concern that it was an issue. That never came past. So a lot of the things that people were worried about actually never really materialized, which is a good thing. Also the students have been enjoying it. I have here some quotes from some of the students. I'm very proud to participate in this program because it gives me a chance to gain communication skills, and so I can express my opinions about topics that interest me. Another student goes, we need to make a change to our society, and debate is one of the ways to improve the skills we need for a change. So it seems like the reception has been incredibly positive. Next steps are they need more teaching materials. Primarily because a lot of the teaching materials in debate are in English. I think Martin was saying something about iDebate, given the events that are happening in the Arab world now, there's a strong push to translate a lot of the material into Arabic. Also, they want to have a national competition. A bit of the problem with this is, of course, travel in Iraq isn't the safest thing in the world. Also, because the competition would have to be bilingual, in the sense that there would be 2 separate tracks for Arabic and Kurdish. And the final thing is probably bringing them into the fold of the global debate community, both in the competitive as well as the educator sense. So that's it. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to ask me.
Yes, we have about 7 minutes for some question and answers just to take on this section. Does anybody want to start? Margaret's question?
Many of the things you described sound very familiar to what I've been experiencing in this region for the past month. In your trainings, did you take time to talk about how to teach debate as well, so that because they were teachers, we need to teach those skills onward rather than students who would be using them themselves?
It wasn't explicit. There wasn't explicit focus on this because primarily because we had 5 days. We needed to teach them debate in the first place. We did give them the exercises going. Look, this is what you should do with your students later on. Given that I'm not an educator myself in a professional sense, so I couldn't really make prescriptions on how to teach it. But we said this is what we're doing with you. Everything we're doing today, you should do with your students when you go back to your school. So, in essence, it was probably we were advocating it through mimicry, saying what the exercise that you're having fun doing now, do that with your students, see if they enjoy it too. Otherwise, we can continue talking about other things that we could do with students. But we didn't really have formal instruction on how to teach debating. Just more, we taught debating and said, this is how. Just follow us in terms of teaching debating to your own students.
And another really quick question: what kind of topics do you you brought one topic example? Can you bring some others?
So this house would the racier topics where this house would make all schools co-ed. Yeah, it was scandalous. I mean, to be fair, I actually suspect that we might have been overcautious. I think, it was also probably better to err on the side of caution than to turn a significant number of people off by going too far with it. I think like there were people in private who were able to discuss more controversial issues. Like there was like when we did the Iraq, the boon of Bain thing. There were groups of people that went like, yeah, but the government is doing this already, so we can't change anything that the government is doing. Period. Right? But there were other people who were quite critical. So there's of course a spectrum that operates there. So this house would abolish school uniforms. This house, that was primarily, there were a few other motions that we made. I can't remember them all now. But it was what would be considered tame or very tame anywhere else, I reckon. Yes. Effie.
Okay.
And Carl.
So is there any plans in the future that you would adopt a more direct way for you to interact with students instead of using the teacher in the proxy?
I wanted that. I've suggested it. Obviously, there haven't been any. Well, we've talked about the idea of when they have this debate competition to potentially do it as both a workshop and a competition. So maybe 2 days or 3 days of a workshop program, and then after that, going into the competition itself, where we directly interact with the students, the trainers. Of course, we need more trainers for this, but the trainers interact with the students directly and teach them. But again, this is 4 months old, so I'm not sure where it goes. Also, going to Iraq isn't cheap. Primarily because, like, just as a side anecdote, like when we were, the NDI operates in a secure compound. Like, if you guys have seen those 9-foot high walls that you see in any movie that involves Iraq, they have those, it's called T-walls, they have them around the compound. They have a private military corporation that provides their security. That armored vest, I didn't have to wear it all the time, but we traveled around in armored Land Cruisers. You get 2 guys, like they call them personally security detail, they're like ex-Foreign Legion or SAS, and stuff like that, working for these PMCs, and like they basically open the door for you, they do like an area check. So I suspect bringing in more heads puts an overhead that is not present anywhere else. Like I said, but they're enthusiastic about doing these things. The next step I think that might be really helpful might be if we could give a debate video. I actually gave them an Oslo's debate video, except I made the mistake of not realizing that to anyone who's not a debater, Monash A and Sydney A talk way too fast.
Yeah.
And then after I was watching, I was like, oh, this is really fast. Like, they were just lost, so I stopped the video. But we probably need a video that possibly comes from people who speak slower, or maybe with the same language difficulties that they might face in Iraq.
Or in Arabic.
Oh, in Arabic, yeah. But yeah, I haven't been able to identify any Arabic.
But if they have their national tournament coming
Yeah.
up, that would be one opportunity for
But-
recording that video.
Yeah, but that goes into like the circular thing that we want a proper debate, like to show them this is an example as opposed to. We had a real good debate there.
I think that June was bringing up a good point yesterday where he was saying that you can't show a really great WUDC final video as an
Yeah.
example because that'll just scare people.
Yeah, yeah.
There's another-
Yes, Kyra.
Couple questions. One was just linking to what Margot was saying.
Uh-huh.
Is the reason why there wasn't a lot of focus on how to teach debate because it assumes a high quality of teacher training amongst the participants? Because that's not really the case in all countries. And then I was also wondering, was the objective of the program for them to develop their own debate classes or courses within the school, or to integrate debate into existing courses?
Okay, I'll answer the second one first. It was to start a debate club. It's not, well, Marcin is a teacher or was a teacher, and he talked about how debating can be integrated into existing lesson plans. But in terms of the purpose of the program, it was to start debate clubs that would debate against each other, not as debate to be used as a pedagogical tool in the schools.
So it would be part of the actual curriculum?
No,
it
it would be a co-curricular activity. The first question in terms of the, I think, to be honest, I think it was just really a question of the path of least resistance, in the sense that we felt that we needed to get them hooked on debate, and then we assumed that the next step would be, like there would be a follow-up step where we would teach them how to teach it. There was real concern at the start whether this would get any leverage at all, like whether we could, like whether we make any headway, like like in retrospect, we were like our concerns were kind of unfounded, but at the point we were going into the program, we weren't sure whether they'd even take to debating. Like they might just go, "This is a waste of time," or "I don't think this is appropriate for this country." Like there were real fears like that at the start. In the end, it wasn't, and maybe then we could have, in retrospect, we could have executed it as teaching how to teach it. But in the start, this was really not a question. So we wanted to get them to go like, "I enjoy debating. I like doing it, and if I like it, I'm sure I can make my students like it too."
So
Right?
they were optionally could attend the training. It's not like they were mandated by their school or sent by their school to go to receive this training and then they had to.
It was optional. It was optional, but highly desirable on their part. Erbil's like the best city in Iraq at this stage. It has, I mean, in the sense that it has 24/7 power and they have electricity and water and functional shopping malls and stuff like that. Like some of the participants went, "Can we cut one day out of the program so we can go to the malls and stuff like that?" To which others disagree. But yeah. Sorry, I saw one more hand.
There was another hand.
Yes. Yes.
Is there an absolute high participation coming from the non-elite schools? Since you're talking about extremes, only those elite schools participating.
I don't think there is at this stage. Like I said, again, after the program, like we just really went and did this teaching the teachers thing. The decision to make was just use those schools as well as what happens next isn't really in my hands. I think still so far it's within those schools. I think it's also a capacity question. Like those schools being elite, I think is a very relative sense. I think it's just more functional than other schools, and therefore they have the capacity in terms of people to just teach these things. Like they're not to the brim in terms of too many students, teachers, and stuff like that.
What do you mean by elite school?
I'm honestly not sure what it means to be an elite school in Iraq. That's why I said my suspicion is this is probably speculative, right? Is that it's just functional, that it's not dogged by the same problems that a lot of other schools in Iraq might be plagued by. That's my guess on it.
We have time for one more question. 2 more minutes, and then we have to move on to the next presentation.
The same question I had. One comment is that whenever we do some work, it is better to concentrate on the rural people also. No? As I said, the elite schools, no? Non-elite. Why don't we concentrate on non-elite schools? No? So people may come to the conclusion that okay, debate is only for elite and it is not for non-elite. So it should be. We should strike a balance between. And I have seen in my country, the rural cognition is very high than the urban cognition.
That's possibly true. Again, like I said, it wasn't really my fault in the sense. Like, I would have been happy to have taught anyone. I just suspect that there's probably a logistical question as well as a capacity question. It was probably a judgment. It also could have been, to be fair, a question of what the Ministry of Education and the both Ministry of Education asked for. They might have gone, because they had to get permission to run this program, they might have gone, we want to do it in a limited pool before you do a broad-based approach to this, so that could have been it.
You have 30 seconds.
Are we
done?
Just that I raised that issue because we just got an update from NDI that does want to expand the program. And I raised the issue of elite. And what they mean by elite isn't what we mean by elite.
Okay.
They do mean that it's better performing.
Right.
It's not about the quality of this, it's for elite students. It's just
Right.
that the school's performing better. So they call them elite schools,
Right.
meaning they're better performing schools.
Okay.
But we now have working for us, from the Youth Initiative, someone who's an Iraqi Haider. So so Haider's going to take the lead on this going forward. He's based in our New York office, but there'll be a lot more work in Arabic this coming year, and we'll be launching a major initiative later this year with the British Council. So.
Oh wow, yeah, that'd be excellent.
All right, thank you very much, Dave.
Later.
Yeah. My email address is Suthen, Suthen @gmail.com. Yeah, Singapore, Uganda, Thailand, Holland, England, Netherlands. Suthen, yeah. At gmail.com.
Next up will be Manos. Do you just want to plug in your laptop or?